part 2 of chapter 7. He wondered about this a good deal as the first slow half hour ticked on. But you need not wonder, for I am going to tell you. She had got home late for dinner, which with her shoes and stockings very wet, and when they asked her where she had been and what on earth she had been doing, she said she had been with Diggory Kirke. Under further questioning, she said she had gotten her feet wet in a pool of water, and that pool was in a wood. Asked where the wood was, she said she didn't know. Asked if it was in one of the parks, she said truthfully enough that she supposed it might be a sort of park. From all this, Polly's mother got the idea that Polly had gone off without telling anyone to some part of London she didn't know, and gone into some strange park and amused herself by jumping into puddles. As a result, she was told that she had been very naughty indeed, and that she wouldn't be allowed to play with that Kirke boy anymore if anything of the sort ever happened again. Then she was given dinner with all the nice parts left out and sent to bed for 2 solid hours. If it was a thing that happened to one quite often in those days. So while Diggory was staring out of the dining room window, Polly was lying in bed, and both were thinking how terribly slowly the time could go. I think myself I would rather have been in Polly's position. She had to only wait for the end of 2 hours, but every few minutes Diggory would hear a cab or a baker's van or a butcher's boy coming round the corner and think, here she comes, then find it wasn't. And in between these false alarms for what seemed like hours and hours, the clock ticked on, and one big fly, high up and far out of reach, buzzed against the window. It was one of those houses that get quite quiet and dull in the afternoon, and always seemed to smell of mutton. During his long watching and waiting, one small thing happened which I shall have to mention, because something very important came to it later. A lady called with some grapes for Diggory's mother, and as the dining room door was open, Diggory couldn't help overhearing Aunt Letty and the lady as they talked in the hall. "What lovely grapes," came Aunt Letty's voice. "I'm sure if anything could do her good, these would. But poor dear little Mabel, I'm afraid it would need fruit from the land of youth to help her now. Nothing in this world will do very much." Then they both lowered their voices and said a lot more that he could not hear. Ugh, I can speak. If he had heard that bit about the land of youth a few days ago, he would have thought Aunt Letty was just talking without meaning anything in particular, the way grown-ups do, and it wouldn't have interested him. He almost thought so now, but suddenly it flashed upon his mind that he now knew, even if Aunt Letty didn't, that there really was other worlds, and that he himself had been to one of them already. At that rate, there might be a real land of youth somewhere. There might be almost anything there. Might be some fruit in the other world that would really cure his mother. And well, you know how it feels if you begin hoping for something that you want desperately bad. You almost fight against the hope, because it is too good to be true. You've been disappointed so often before. That was how Diggory felt, but it was no good trying to throttle his hope. It might really, it just might be true. So many odd things had happened already, and just that day. And he had these magic rings. There must be worlds you could get to through each and every pool in that wood. He could hunt through all of them, and then mother well again. Everything was right. He forgot all about watching for the witch, his hand already going to his pocket, where he kept the yellow ring, when all at once he heard the sound of galloping. "Hello! What's that?" thought Diggory. "Fire engine? I wonder what horse is on fire. Great Scott, it's coming here. Why, it's her." I needn't tell you who he meant by her. First came the hansom. There was no one in the driver's seat. On the roof, not sitting, but standing on the roof, swaying with superb balance as it came at full speed round the corner with one wheel in the air, was Jadis, the queen of the queens and the terror of Charn. Her teeth were bared, her eyes shone like fire, and her long hair streaming out behind her like a comet's tail. She was flogging the horse without mercy. Its nostrils were wide and red, as its sides were spotted with foam. It galloped madly up to the front door, missing the lamp-post only by an inch, and then reared up on its hind legs. The hansom crashed into the lamp-post and shattered into several pieces. The witch, with a magnificent jump, had sprung clear just in time and landed on the horse's back. She settled herself astride and leaned forward, whispering things in its ear. They must have been things meant not to quiet it, but madden it. It was on its hind legs again, and in a moment, and its neigh was like a scream. It was all hoofs and teeth, and eyes were tossing its mane. Only a splendid rider could have stayed on its back. Before Diggory had recovered his breath, there's the image. Good many other things began to happen. After a second, hansom dashed up close behind the first. Out of it jumped a fat man in a frock coat and a policeman. Then came a third, with two more policemen in it. After it came about 20 people, mostly errand boys on bicycles, all ringing their bells and letting out cheers and catcalls. Last of all came a crowd of people on foot, all very hot with running but obviously enjoying themselves. Windows shot up in all the houses of that street, and a housemaid or butler appeared at every door. They wanted to see the fun as well. Meanwhile, an old gentleman had begun to struggle shakily out of the ruins of the first hansom. Several people rushed forward to help him, but as one pulled him one way and the other pulled him another, perhaps he would have got out quite as quickly on his own. Diggory guessed that the old gentleman must have been Uncle Andrew, but you couldn't see his face. His tall hat had been bashed down over it. Diggory rushed out and joined the crowd. That's the woman! That's the woman!" cried the fat man, pointing at Jadis. "Do your duty, constable. Hundreds and thousands of pounds worth she's taken from my shop. Look at that rope of pearls around her neck. That's mine. And she's given me a black eye, too. What's more, that she has, governor," said one of the crowd, "and as a lovely black eye as I'd wish to see. Beautiful bit of work that must have been. Gore, ain't she the strong one? You ought to put a nice raw beefsteak on it, mister. That's what it wants," said the butcher's boy. "Now then," said the most important of the policemen, "what's all this I hear?" "I tell you," began the fat man, when someone else called out, "don't let that old cove in the cab get away. Her up to it." The old gentleman was certainly... This is the image. Uncle Andrew had just succeeded in standing up and was rubbing his bruises. "Now then," said the policeman, turning to him. What's all this? Wampful Pomfy Shomph, came Uncle Andrew's voice from inside the hat. None of that now, said the policeman sternly. You'll find this is no laughing matter. Take that hat off, see. This was more easily said than done, but after Uncle Andrew had struggled in vain with the hat for some time, two other policemen seized it by the brim and forced it off. Thank you, said Uncle Andrew in a faint voice. Thank you. Dear me, I'm terribly shaken. If someone could give me a small glass of brandy. Now you attend to me, if you please, said the policeman, taking out a very large notebook and a very small pencil. Are you in charge of that there, young woman? Look out, called several voices, and the policeman jumped a step back just in time. The horse had aimed a kick at him which would probably have killed him. Then the witch wheeled the horse around so that she faced the crowd, and its hind legs were on the footpath. She had a long, bright knife in her hand and had been busily cutting the horse free from the wreck of the hansom. All this time, Diggory had been trying to get into a position which he could touch the witch. This wasn't at all easy because on the side nearest to him, there were too many people. And in order to get round to the other side, he had to pass between the horse's hooves and the railings of the area that surrounded the house. For the Ketterleys' house had a basement. If you know anything about horses, and especially if you had seen the state the horse was in, at that moment you would realize that this was a ticklish thing to do. Diggory knew lots about horses, but he set his teeth and got ready to make the dash for it as soon as he saw a favorable moment. A red-faced man in a bowler hat had now shouldered his way to the front of the crowd. Hi, policeman. That's my horse. What she's sitting on. Same as it's my cab. What she's made matchwood of. One at a time, please. One at a time, said the policeman. But there ain't no time, said the cabby. I know that horse. Better'n you. 'Tain't an ordinary horse. His father was a officer's. I do not speak the Old English well. Officer's charger in the cavalry he was, and if the young woman goes on exciting him, there'll be murder done. Here, let me get at him. The policeman was only too glad to have a good reason for standing further away from the horse. The cabby took a step nearer, looked up at Jadis, and said in a not unkindly voice, Now, miss, let me get at his head and just get off. You're a lady, and you don't want all these roughs going on for you, do you? You want to go home and have a nice cup of tea and lay down quiet like. Then you'll feel so much better. At the same time, he stretched out his hand toward the horse's head with words, Steady, Strawberry, old boy, steady now. Then for the first time, the witch spoke. Dog, came her cold voice, ringing loud above the other noises. Dog, unhand our royal charger. We are the Empress Jadis. And then the next chapter is the fight at the lamp post.